Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is actually a part of the series, and so if you missed out on the first few parts, I highly suggest that you go back to the playlist. This is all about MBTI. I suggest that you go through it in sequence so that this video will make better sense. So I've been looking forward to talk about this topic because ever since started going into my own learning journey on MBTI, understanding personality or depth psychology as a whole, I know that MBTI is more of a universal language. It is a topic that most people and even the younger generation are very much into. Therefore, I still decided to pursue it and use it as a talking point so that I can draw you guys or people who are actually into wanting to develop themselves, heighten their self-awareness, is to know how can MBTI really help you by going through the deeper concept of it. Basically, my point of this video is to share that MBTI is not just about the 4 letters. The real magic lies is what makes the 4 letters, So when you take the personality test, it technically tells you what you are and maybe some of how you are the way that you are, but it doesn't really explain a lot of the why. Ever since I got to know about cognitive function, which is what the main part of this video, and this is going to be a bunch of series, and I'm going to cite and reference from a few key people that I took the idea from and that I learned a lot from, but sharing it in a unique way where it's more from my perspective. And for those of you who are new to my channel, I also married the world of fashion with MBTI. There are actually a lot of creators out there trying to create artwork where what would ISTJ wear versus an ENFJ. And I went into that initially and then found very interesting framework and ways to explain how do you actually decode the stereotypical MBTI type and then how does it relate to your dressing sense. So if you're very interested in that, you can check out my other videos because it talks more about the style critique of each MBTI type. But this video is particularly for those of you who are new to MBTI, who just started your journey into understanding MBTI, that okay, first and foremost, what the 4-letter means is already covered in the previous part of my videos. So go and watch that if you have not watched that, obviously. This is more about the golden nugget of what are cognitive function and how is it related to the MBTI. So the way I see this is there are 2 groups of people. One group of people actually are very obsessed with MBTI and they see in a way where wow, now this makes more sense. Everything about people and the way they behave, the way they act is so much more simplified and it's easier for them to understand through the concept of the 4 letters or the preferences, right? Or the dichotomies. However, there are also the other group of people who are obviously just judging this based on the fact that personalities are extremely complex. There are so many different types of people in the world. How can you just categorize and box people up based on only 16 types? But I guess give this video a chance, give cognitive function studies a chance. When you get to know the real works of depth psychology, the works from Carl Jung, obviously MBTI has made it digestible and easy for a lot of people to identify and understand, which is also doing a lot of great work in a sense. I know a lot of people who back then doesn't know what their personality is and they start to feel very lost, and actually even worse, people who don't have a lot of natural people skill, they find it very difficult to work with people because there is no framework, to teach them. And I think there are obviously a lot of framework for you to understand people, but personality is something that not just that I am passionate about, but I think it is definitely something that it's worth going into because it is got to do with your ego. It's got to do with your subconscious, your shadow, your superego. We are complex creatures, and if we can have somewhat of a model or framework, it is going to help us to be more accepting, to be able to see differences, to be able to see patterns, to be able to have a more harmonious relationship in a way. Not to say that MBTI is going to solve all your people problems, but at least it's going to empower you with some knowledge from the amazing Carl Jung, and of course a lot of the other resources out there that's teaching people about temperaments, interaction style. It's just all coming together, and I think what I really want to talk about would be cognitive function. It is what I'm very into, and it is what inspired the course that I launched on Udemy about how cognitive function affects people's dressing style, personal style. So if you want to get to know about that, I will link it in the description box below. So I'm going to show you the golden nugget. At least this is what has helped me to transform how I see myself and also how I see other people. So we all know what the 4-letter means by now. And so this is just a glance, and it's kind of like a cover page, right? But the cover page does tell you what the book is about, but the index itself, what is outlined or what are the contexts in the book itself, is going to help you to have a greater understanding of yourself and others, which is going to help you to develop yourself and also to influence other people. So let's talk about cognitive function. What exactly are cognitive functions? Cognitive functions are just tools in your brain that helps you to do two things: how you take in information and how you make decisions. So this is very familiar for those of you who are already, into MBTI. So judging and perceiving. So judging would be how do you actually make decision, and then P will be how you perceive, information. So we have two types of perception, which is using sensor, and then you have intuition, right? And then when it comes to your decision-making function, it will be your thinking and feeling. So how I like to explain cognitive function in a more fun way would be, just think of it as each MBTI type has their own superpower and obviously their own weakness, right? If you watch the Avengers or X-Men, you know that each superhero, although they have their own backstory, their nurture, right? They also have their own nature, which is what are the superpowers that they have that would help one another. As much as they can do certain things with their superpower, it differs from each superheroes. So another thing that I've learned from C.S. Joseph was that he explained cognitive function in a way where he was talking about like bits per second. Each MBTI type has different cognitive function that makes them what they are, and we use it in different frames. The different intensity, the different kind of familiarity. So treat it as how familiar are you with that tool that you're using. So to simplify this, just remember that each MBTI type would have 4 dominant cognitive, also known as 4 brain tools. Let's just have a deeper understanding on the tools and then how it actually translates into the 16 cognitive function that you will see it within the 4 sides of your mind. But before we go into that very in-depth, high-level version, just know that each MBTI type, there are 4. So as I've mentioned earlier, we perceive, we take information in 2 different ways, and then we make decision in 2 different ways. So you have the sensing, and then you have the intuition. So one focuses on concrete realities in the now, what was, past experience, and then intuition will be more of possibilities, future patterns, and seeing the bigger picture. So within the perceiving function, you already have 2 types. And then within the judging function, you also have 2 types, which is thinking, that is more logical, objective, pros and cons, truth. And then you have feelings, which is very much based on values, emotion, and how the decision affect the harmony and the people. And then now, how do we turn this into cognitive function that is within the MBTI type? This is where you hear a lot of this like very geeky lingo in the MBTI community. They would say something like, yeah, this is the SI user, SE user, NI. They are using their TE and their FIs. It sounds almost like chemistry. This is where it can become a little bit confusing, but I'm going to try my best to explain to you so that my future videos, when I use all this lingo, you'll be up to speed, and at least on a certain level, you'll be able to understand how it functions. Really, I'm so excited to do the rest of the videos because this is how I actually help not just people around me. From using it itself, I understood what are my worries, what are the things that imprison me in terms of my own beliefs. It's when you have deeper understanding, again, knowledge is really much power. Okay, so we're done with the tools. Now I want you to think of it as, for each tools, right, they are different that is being used. We have two dominant mood. One mood is more inwards, okay, so they are very much focused on introspection. It's very much like a window that is closed. You know, when you have your window shut, you don't see anything on the outside. You are very much focused on what's going on around your inner world, within your room. So we call this introversion or intro. And then when we open up the window, right, this is the other mood. This is more of an outward, external mood, which focuses on what is outside the window, which is more action-oriented, outgoing, really not focused on what's going on inside, but more of what's going on the outside. Something very interesting is that, introverted functions, it is considered more obviously reflective, inner focus, therefore it can be very subjective. And then for extroverted function, it tends to be more objective because it focuses on what works. It's based on the standards of what's created on the outside, right? So it may not go on what's inside, which is more of your authenticity, but it's more of like, it can also be perceived as like you're pleasing other people, but let's not go off tangent because I can really go deep on that. So just remember there are two moods version, which is very much on the inside, and then you have the extroversion, which is very much focused on the outside. So you have the tools and you have two different moods that you use it. So for example, if you are INFJ, meaning you could be INTJ or INFJ, you have the dominant function of introverted intuition, which is why when you see certain stereotypical memes about INFJ, INTJ, is that they're always thinking about the future, idealizing, always in their head. They are like in this loop all the time, and they are very much not in the present moment, and they tend to forget a lot. It's because they have introverted intuition. Intuition is about possibilities. Introversion is the mood, which is what's on the inside. So imagine them using this tool like a hero. Therefore, they always have this stereotype saying that INFJ and INTJ, they can foresee the future, they have foresight, they are always thinking about what is ahead of them, and they're very sure of that. Another example would be extroverted feeling. So sometimes just understand the word for what it is as a combination. So extroverted means the window is open, I'm focusing on the outside. So if I'm focused on the outside and it's about feelings, it means that I'm very much concerned and I prioritize about the harmony and the feelings of other people. Therefore, people like ENFJ and ESFJ, they have dominant FE, extroverted feeling. So FE is nickname, harmony. They're very much focused on the feeling of other people, relationship. Therefore, for them, it's very natural and they are always in the flow when they are doing things for people. Very expressive, and they don't fail telling other people how they feel about them in a good way. They just know how to express themselves. And then the opposite will be quite, introverted feeling, where it's like more closed in. So in the MBTI forums, a lot of people mistaken FI to be people pleasers or but there's also like a lot of stereotypes saying that FI, introverted feeling users, are extremely selfish. But this is also because if you break down on what introverted feeling means, it means that when your window is closed, you look on the inside and then you focus very much on your feelings. So you are very protective of your own feeling. You are very much concerned about your authenticity, how you feel about things. Therefore, sometimes you can draw out a lot of boundaries that people will think that you are selfish, but actually, you kind of need both. You kind of need to care about other people's feelings and also care about your feelings. Okay, so I've given you some context or some overview of what this cognitive function means. Of course, I'll do very dedicated videos about each of the cognitive function and share my own experiences on how I see other personality types use it, and I think this is going to help you to have a more concrete idea on how it looks like. Perhaps it can even help you to psychoanalyze people. I think that's enticing for everyone. But again, I must give credits to a lot of the YouTube creators, especially C.S. Joseph. I signed up and I was part of his paid membership. I actually have access to a lot of his content, which it helped me a lot. When I'm passionate about something and I applied it in real life, I really do want to create videos to share with people ultimately. So the final piece here is, before we go into the small little series of each of the cognitive function and then relating it to what is your type, I think that you can look out for it, because I'm going to do more of like for that MBTI type, their cognitive function, and so on. So the last piece here is, how does all this cognitive function work together? Remember, I mentioned that each MBTI type, stage 1, let's talk about your ego part of your mind, okay, which is your MBTI type. We haven't even gone to the 3 sides of the mind. Let's focus on the ego part of the mind. Your MBTI type and your 4 cognitive function, or your 4 tools, how do they work with each other? Which one comes first? Which one you're greater at? Is there one of it that is more of your weakness? I think this is the part where cognitive functions gets extremely interesting and useful. So you have 4 tools within your mind. Each of the tool, you use it very differently. The first tool, which is called the dominant function, also nicknamed to it, which is the hero function. I think the name hero already suggests that this is something that is like your superpower. This is something that you use on a daily basis without even realizing it, without even using a lot of energy with it. So, for example, ISTJ, ISFJ, they have introverted sensing as their dominant or their hero function. So for them, always checking with their past experiences, remembering things, having good memory, and being very detailed and structured or systematic is often very natural for them. It is something that they will just do even without. So that is their hero function, and they're very comfortable and in the flow using it. So your dominant function or your hero function is the strongest and it's the most natural cognitive function that you would use. And then the second cognitive function, which is the professional name or the technical term, is actually called auxiliary function, also nicknamed the parent or sidekick. So it's like Batman and Robin, right? There's always a partner supporting you. It's not playing the main character energy, but it's kind of like at the side supporting you. So you kind of use it from time to time. You use it quite confidently too. You don't really take a lot of energy to use it, but you don't use it as often as your superhero, obviously. And some interesting information is that they say if you really want to be the best version of your MBTI type, you should be focusing a lot on your auxiliary or parent or sidekick function, which is the second function. Some tips there. Okay, now the third function is called the tertiary function. Pretty self-explanatory. It's just that I remember it better and have a better understanding of the third function when it's nicknamed the child function. So it can come out very innocent. It can come out sometimes in a very immature way, but doesn't mean it's in a bad way. So I notice something with ENFJs because they have extroverted sensing child function. ENFJs have extroverted sensing, so for them, they love adventure, but not like adrenaline junkie like ESTP, which they have extroverted sensing as their hero function. But these people, they do love adventure, they love having fun, and they take things very lightly, and you can see like they're just very, very playful about it. And when they experience sensory details, when they smell something good on you, or when they see something nice on you, they will just comment it in a very innocent way, in a very light-hearted way, the best way that I can explain. So we have the child function, and finally, this is probably the target point. This is where we want to focus a lot on, which is our inferior function. So your fourth function is the gateway to your shadow. It is where people poke at it too much or emphasize it too much. You know, when some people just push the wrong button. I think a lot of times when they have this statement where, oh, I just pushed the wrong button of this person and then it turned to be somebody else. Pushing the wrong button, a lot of times, is pushing the person's inferior function. So inferior means this is where our greatest fear, our insecurity lies, and we are constantly, I would say, very conscious about it. So for example, INFJs, INTJ, they have extroverted sensing inferior function. So because they're very much thinking about big picture, patterns, connecting the dots, and thinking about like possibilities, when you sit them down and give them a bunch of paperwork, like bookkeeping, a bunch of numbers that are just a lot of details for them, they totally just switch off. Because extroverted sensing, being the now, is not a thing for them. It's their inferior function. I will even call this the baby function. It's almost like they prefer not to use it. So this is also nicknamed like the rookie or the intern, or even less than that. It's basically they're only stepping into it and then you expect them to be very skilled at it. It's kind of like abuse. So in summary, this is the weakest tool, the inferior function, but they have a lot of growth potential. So this is the best part about being a human being, right? Sometimes, you know, when we are put through certain discomfort, and especially they say, you know, progress is pain. And so when we are being put through a lot of uncomfortable situation, so meaning your inferior function is being at stake here, is being poked at, your button is being pushed, it's always through this kind of pain. This is where change happens. This is where development happens. This is where you would actually grow. And so a lot of people that I've coached, they always try to talk about their inferior function because they want to really work on it. They're like, how can I be unafraid of extroverted intuition? You know, like for ISTJ, they hate unknown, they hate uncertainty. And which is why ISTJs, ISFJs, they are one of the most reliable type. If you want them to do like the routine, the mundane, doing things over and over again, right? They get really good at it. But then you reach a point where, let's say in their career, they want to do something that is more creative. Let's say they want to start their own business. They want to be exploring their artisanal creative side. This is when they're going to have a lot of roadblocks and challenges, because extroverted intuition is one of the most creative function that one can have, because you connect dots that probably nobody would have thought of. This is where all the novelty, the great ideas come from. And so for them, they are always afraid of trying new things. So that is like their potential pitfall. This is where their areas of development is at. And so looking at your inferior function is definitely going to help you with being more self-aware and then taking the actions to develop yourself. You know, you can be a beginner, but you can also become an expert. So anything is just a matter of time and effort, which is going to equate to you having the skills. And so every inferior function can be worked on. So this is the end of this part 1 video for cognitive function. At least as an introduction, at least it kind of open up your perspective a little bit about MBTI is not just the 4 letters. So in summary, why cognitive functions matter? Because they explain why people act, perceive information, make decisions differently. And especially when you know your own cognitive function, which is knowing what are the tools that you use most of, that you're most confident in, and especially the tools that you are weaker at, you know precisely where to pinpoint your gaps and how you can actually overcome it and be a better version of yourself. And when you can do it on yourself, you transfer the knowledge to other people. You can also identify other people's strengths and inferior functions better, which is going to help you to work with them in a more harmonious way, hopefully. Anyways guys, I hope you found this video useful. Let me know your thoughts. For those of you out there who are watching my video, if you are already MBTI expert, I hope you can go a little bit gentle on like the explanation of some of the cognitive functions. I know that it can get quite debatey in this. These are just from my own experiences, my own studies, and what has worked. But let me know. I'm also willing to open up my perspective and see from different lenses on how you guys understand this topic and how it's being used for your own self-awareness and self-development. Thank you guys for watching all the way, and stay tuned to the next video. Bye.